Welcome back to How to Build an F-14 Tomcat. It's Friday, November 11th, probably about 2 o'clock or so. Last video I showed you guys the molding of the 1/3 of the left vertical fin and a part of the ventral fin. I trimmed the excess glass off of those about 20 minutes ago. They're pretty well cured, but I'm gonna let them stay in their parting planes until probably this time tomorrow, and then I will pop them loose and start molding the other half, or in the case of the vertical fin, the other third. The other vertical fin, I've got a little bit more parting plane adjustments to do just because of that NACA duct area, but other than that, both of those are ready to go. Also mentioned I would show you guys how I was going to go about getting these overwing fairing hatch panels done and ready to be molded. I've already done one. I slept on this overnight, and while I was just kind of relaxing last night watching TV, I was thinking up some different ideas and ways to do it. One way was using litho plate to basically just make a barrier dam around it on these three edges here. And that would have worked. It would have just been a little spongy. And then I got to the thought of basically doing the exact same thing, just figuring out some way of making it a little more rigid. So all I did is I just took some 1/4 inch by 1 inch balsa, and I just built up the flange areas that go down in the fuselage. I just built those up to where it's nice and flat across those three. So it sits down on this piece of melamine board, nice and flat. It doesn't move at all. So this one is pretty much ready to go. I just got to finish these little areas on these three sides and hot glue that down to hold it in place. And then here at the back edge of these overwing fairing stiffeners, I'll use clay, and I'll actually build up where it stands off of the melamine board. That way the cloth doesn't wrap around up under it and lock it in place. So that one's done. Essentially, for finishing these edges, I'm just going to take some of that aluminum ducting tape, and I'm just going to put down around the edges, and then I'll trim it to fit to shape around the actual the overwing fairing. The reason I'm going to use that stuff instead of monocoat is it just sticks extremely well to just about everything. I'll probably, some of this is already sealed, like the original flange part of it, and then the only part that's not is the new balsa I put in. So I'll probably put a real thin layer of thin CA on there just to kind of seal it, hit it with some 220 grit paper to smooth it down, put that tape down, and that'll be good to go. So to come up with the shape of these pieces I needed, again, I just lay the panel down on this piece of melamine board, and you can kind of hit it one spot, it just flops around wherever it wants to. So with it down on this corner and this corner, I just took, again, my little piece of 1/4 by 1 inch balsa, put it up against the flange, making sure that the angle of the flange is the same, so it's nice and flush against that whole front flange portion that's already on the hatch. Then just take a couple pieces of masking tape to hold it into position. Then hold it, flip it over, and then you leave the back side of it, and then just take a Sharpie marker then just trace around the outline of it. This one has a good bit of body filler on the back side from when I was finishing that forward edge, so I'll go over that with the tabletop belt sander, just knock that stuff off a little bit. But once you get that done, you can pull it off, and you're left with the drawing of the shape of it. If you can see that, it's very faint. Now I just take that over to my little Dremel cutoff saw and trim it down to shape to that cut line. And I'm not worried about getting it exactly perfect, just enough to, I just want it to follow the contour. And if there's gaps, there's gaps. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Now with that cut, just kind of check, make sure it fits somewhat decent. Then you're going to want to take your panel again, and using those pieces of tape you put down beforehand, just put those on the back side of the, just stick it down to the melamine board. The reason why you're doing this is you want this piece of wood to be on the same plane and parallel to this piece that's already here on the hatch. Then I just run a bead of medium CA down it. Then when I put it down, I make sure that it's sort of at an angle. And then it kind of rolls into it. That way you don't have to worry about any CA getting squeezed out onto the board, gluing the whole thing to the board. That bit of kicker to get it into position. And I'll put another layer here of a little bead of medium CA inside the larger gaps. Then wipe off any excess with just an old rag. And when you're done, it should fit flat against the table, which is pretty close. It's a little high on that side, but no big deal. I can leave the tape a little long on that end, and then I can roll the tape down onto the board to help hold it down. Now I'm just going to go around and do the same thing on the rest of these sides. And just using that scrap, that piece of scrap cut off I had. I'll go down and I'll do this backside portion. I'll wait to do this little section last. And again, just a little bit of tape. Hold your piece of balsa wood in place. Unless it wants to be difficult and it keeps popping off. Trim this one to shape. Check it, make sure it fits, which it does. Because that little fairing stiffener that hangs off the back, you gotta overhang it off the table a little bit. And pretty much once you do one of these things, it all goes fairly quickly and it's just a little easier. Of course, if you're not building a plug with separate hatches like I am, if you're just going to make your plug and all your access hatches in all one piece and you're going to mold it that way, and then not have internal flanges with the mold, you don't have to go through all this long, drawn out, tedious process. But personally, I like to work with airplanes that already have all the mold flanges already molded in. I think they're a little easier to have to deal with and finish than having to cut out a mold and having to make all your flanges out of balsa wood, and you have to glass those, and then you gotta get it ready for paint. Just makes it a little bit more work now that you don't have to worry about doing later on, doing it this way. Compared to if there were no flanges. Hit these with a little bit of sandpaper. Here on the board, and we've got two of our edges done. You can see it's a little wobbly here at the corner, but we'll fix that with that piece there. And the last one, I just used a piece of, I think it's 1/8 inch balsa, and it worked out really well. And it should work out just as well on this one, it looks like. Do now is I'm just going to take this piece of balsa and I'm going to sand the taper into it on one end. You can see the balsa wood, the difference in the thickness. Probably not too well, but it's there. I'm just gonna put a bead of CA down one edge of it. This piece of wood, it elevates it off of, elevates the whole thing off a little bit, mostly right here. And I'm gonna do that on purpose, because I'm gonna take my sanding block and sand the other side to get it to even out across it. And this is the reason why I keep little oddball shaped scrap pieces like this, because you can always use it for something eventually. So sanding it lengthwise like that, I got this way leveled off. Now I'm going to do kind of a combination between the two to level off the rest of it. And there we have it. We've got all the planes. We got the flanges built up so you get a really nice wide molding area for your flanges. Just add a little bit of strength to it. The back side of these, again, I'm just going to put a little clay dam up under the stiffeners to strengthen them up. But I'm not going to put any sort of parting point or anything back here. I'm just going to let the resin run off the back side a little bit of it, let the glass overhang, and then when all that's done, I'll actually trim the mold up against this line, and that'll give me the trim line for the actual part once it comes out. That way every part that comes out of that mold will be exactly the same, unless you mess up the mold and then you've got your plug that you can make another one. So that's how I came up with extending the flanges on the overwing fairings. I gotta make a run to the hardware store to get that that ducting tape. And once I get back from there, do a bit more studying. When I get ready to take a break, I'll get that ducting tape put down, wax all this stuff, get it PVA'd, and I may possibly start molding these things up tonight. If not, I'll probably do it tomorrow morning, and then while there's other two molds, or while this one's, after I lit this one, I'll lit those other two. And never know, by Sunday we should have all the molds but the wing panels and the fuselages and the fuselage done, except for the stuff that I can't do, that I don't have plugs for, like the wing carry through spar and the leading edge slats and spoilers and all that stuff. So that's where we are. Again, trying to get done as much as I can before we move the week after Thanksgiving. So if everything goes well this weekend, I'll be busy packing stuff up until Thanksgiving. So we won't have any videos until, at the earliest, the first week of December. So until the next video, which will probably be tomorrow, maybe tonight, we'll see. Y'all have a good one, and have a good weekend.